on very much, and again, I come to the private sector because even the discussions with the private sector about what support they need to give to the shelters, we are doing that.
All right. Let me give Alita a chance to respond from UN Women.
Yes. Thanks for the question about the role of the UN in shelter provision. I think your question speaks to the role of the UN in the overall sector of ending violence against women and girls in South Africa. And that role is to support civil society and to support the government in a number of specific areas, such as where needed, where requested, bringing in the global evidence base, bringing in global technical assistance as needed, in addition to areas such as developing standards, coordination, and looking at funding models. The UN are not here, we're not in a position to fund the shelter movement. What we need to do is to play our role and civil society play their role, the private sector and government. If we do this in a coordinated way, we can improve the provision of shelter to women and girls in South Africa.
All right, Dr. Chana.
Thank you, Kathy. In terms of what measures have been put in place to monitor sexual harassment in government, what happens is that every year in April, departments submit their reports on sexual harassment in government so that we can actually manage to know how many cases have actually taken place, how have they been handled, and that is actually put in a form of a report. And one thing is that also in terms of Section 60 of the Employment Equity Act, there is a provision that actually talks to failure of senior management within government to take action as to what measures need to be put in place to deal with that. It's about sanctioning. And there is also now currently a move to actually also manage to label sexual harassment in the workplace as corruption. When somebody requires sexual favors from you, for you to actually manage to get something from government, it should actually then be classified as corruption and be handled as such. Thank you.
Let me go back then to this side of the room. I'm coming, Ma. I'm coming. Apologies, I'm coming. Okay. Let me give you a chance to go. Yes, sir.
Thanks. As I indicated, my name is Katlego Rasibitse, the Minister of Safer Sex in South Africa. My question goes to CGE. It's been a 2022 CGE, it's been a quite difficult time to work with you in terms of the national sex worker sector. By the time you took a press release to take position on decriminalization of sex work, we took us to a lot of engagement and consultations that we feel they were meaningless, like fruitless. I want in this conference 2022 today, the 2nd of September, November, we need just one amplified voice from CGE on their position on decriminalization of sex work, as they also need to implement the NSP of gender-based violence and femicide. We just need one voice, CGE. We don't want to hear your deputies, your coordinators saying other things for ECV or other things for ENCA. We need one amplified voice. What is your position, CGE, on decriminalization of sex work in South Africa?
All right. Thanks for that.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. My name is Mahlomo Latau. I am a social worker by profession. Now, for the benefit of the minister, let me make a plea, but I'm making a plea from the heart of a veteran social worker here. I'm making a plea on behalf of what I call the SABC alumni. I'm making a plea for the minister to consult as vigorously as possible with the Council for Social Workers, with all the training institutions that is training a cohort of social workers that you're having in the country now. My plea is based on the following, Minister. During the COVID pandemic, I had an opportunity with a team of all social workers to travel the country to train young social workers who are already on the field. Alas, to our dismay, we realized that these kind of social workers that we are training, who are supposed to be engaging with people needed nothing else but social work 101. There is absolutely no idea of clinical social work, and we don't blame the social workers themselves. We blame the training institutions. And Minister, we know that you've got a relationship because you are the one who established the Council for Social Workers to urgently ensure that training is reviewed.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
To
Yep.
the CGE, I don't know whether I must call it a request or a plea or a question, but if the lady who spoke is a commissioner, Commissioner O'Hara Diseko, would understand my soul for having underplayed the oversight role that the CGE is playing when we're dealing with this scourge of gender-based violence. To the question that you asked her, the commissioner decided to respond only on the role that what the CGE is doing about the police. When the scourge is so huge, and when the CGE is doing so much, if that be the case, perhaps, I'm sorry if I might be sounding insinuative, but Commissioner, the office should have prepared you to come and respond to the summit of this nature. You cannot come and stand on the stage and talk to us about the police when the scourge goes beyond the police, goes to sex workers, goes to many other things.
All right.
Please, I would like you at the end of it all to apologize to the summit. Apologize for having downplayed the oversight role that the CGE is playing. I am a former employee of the CGE Commission. I thank you.
Thank you for that. There was a lady who had her hand up. I recognized her first. Yes, ma'am.
Not you, her. It's me.
Yes, you.
Thank you. My name is Nombeka. I already said about who I am. I'm from Ilichalabantu. There was only one question that I want to ask. Which vetting process is used to employ government employees? Because what happened in Claremont, in Cape Town, of employing someone that was on parole, end up killing Oyinene. We want to know which vetting processes are you using? Department of Labor and the DSP.
All right, we're going to pause it there, come back to the floor and give the panelists an opportunity to respond. Yes, I'm coming, Mama. I'm coming.
I can go.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ntate Mahlumula, my brother. I fully agree with you, and the importance of consultation and extensive consultation. I fully agree with you there. We will continue to engage. In fact, the council is in place. I'm supposed to also have the first meeting with the new council. But with regard to the training of social workers, I think I fully agree. The issue of clinical social workers was raised also yesterday. And I also fully agree with you that when people are social workers, may I also just say, the Department of Social Development, in all honesty, and the social workers that are either employed under the Department of Social Development or any other department, because we do have other social workers who are employed by other different departments. There needs to be an improvement in the curriculum of the training, because the challenges of today are not the same challenges of yesterday. I was in the Northern Cape not long ago, and I was informed, for instance, that even those that go to our drug rehabilitation centers, we were told that the kind of drugs that are being used today, in terms of treating them to get them out of the drugs themselves, there are a lot of new drugs that have found themselves in place, and therefore we need to make sure that there is a different training for them. And also with regard to the kind of workers, how are they employed? I can tell you, government has got a very, very vigorous process of employment. People apply, they go through panels in order for them to be hired as whatever. But there's one thing that I think we must also appreciate. Some people can come and have all the necessary degrees, have all the necessary experience, but you cannot get into their souls. It means we must find a new way of getting into people's souls, because when people are being hired, they are hired on the basis of their qualification, on the basis of their experience. In fact, in government now, we even make sure that there's a security check on the people that are being hired by government. But what those people do, because we cannot deny the fact that the very same people we have in our offices are the very same people who are coming from communities, from societies where the issue of gender-based violence is a problem.
All right.
It therefore means what government needs to do, working together with civil society, there must be a continuous and consistent training that is focused on how do you find, how do you discover those people who harbor those kind of attitudes within them of abuse.
Sure.
Some sit in offices nicely. Immediately when they get out of their offices, the first thing they do when they get into their homes, they change and they are no longer the same people. And we cannot make that to be a problem of just social development or government alone.
All
It
right.
is a societal problem that we need to deal with.
Ms. O'Hara, do you want to respond?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Let me start with the issue raised about decree. I can say here now that the Commission for Gender Equality has got a position on decree, and it supports decree. At this point, it has not been changed. The position has not been changed. Now, on the question that was raised, I don't know the gentleman's name. He was talking about that I only spoke about police. You are correct, sir. The CGE has done a lot of work, but I suppose it was the structure and the emphasis of the question. The emphasis of the question was on destabilization. I did not get an opportunity to talk about the actual work that the CGE does. When the CGE, when we had COVID, for example, the CGE was declared an essential service. And during that time, we were present. We oversaw the disaster regulations to establish the gaps. We looked at them through a gender lens. And the first set of regulations did not cover women who are pregnant, women with children, and other women with special needs. It was the work of the CGE. We were there, we were present in the hospitals, at Krisani, at Pulushong, everywhere we were there, present during the height of COVID. The CGE was there. We were doing monitoring work. We actually, during that time, even when we did an environment scan, we actually said that post-COVID, and at that time we thought it would be 3 months or 6 months, we are going to have an exponential growth of learner pregnancy. And learner pregnancy means the education outcome is negated. We have to do a plan. We did a lot of work.
Right.
We're looking at that. And now, at this point, we are actually saying we are looking at teen pregnancy not just as an individual thing, but with a developmental eye because of the impact, the socio-economic impact of teen pregnancy and learner pregnancy on the country. We are beginning to say the boy child, the men who get involved with teens, is it statutory rape, and what must happen?
All right.
Also, we are looking at the issue of, we've had engagement with, last year we had a webinar on SRHR. looking at issues of SRHR.
All right.
Variously, we do a lot of work. The only thing is that the structure of this interview just confined me to media speculation and what those people who were being referred to as saying, which is, let me talk, which is very important. I have prepared for this summit because it's very important. Gender, violence, femicide must stop. And the CGE is the result of the work and sweat of those people who struggled for a democratic South Africa.
All right,
And
Ms.
we are
O'Hara.
going to strengthen it, and we are going to hit gender-based violence. We are going to ensure that women get empowerment, and we are going to ensure that we uproot patriarchy,
Sure.
even from the minds of the men
Ms.
and the
O'Hara,
young children,
I'm going
so
to have
that
to
we
pause you
have
there.
the society, the non-racial, non-sexist, prosperous South Africa, for
All right.
which so many people died. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Ms. O'Hara. Let me come to the right side of the room. Can we just check the microphones, please?
1, 2, sabotage? Okay, siyabonga. Cela ukusho nje ukuthi sizwile abominister basebenza kanzima kakhulu bayajuluka phansi phezulu. Siyabonga umsebenzi wabo omuhle kodwa sicela nje into eyi-1 besicela nyekela ukutshontsha imali. Ngoba le mali leni itshontshayo yile ibikade izosiza thina la masiya ku state capture. I-state capture siyasikhombisa ukuthi imali kakhulu itshontshe lapha phezulu besicela ukuthi ake kumiwe ominister ama-officials abazazi ukuthi abatshontshe is fine but sengikhuluma nalabo abatshontshayo ukuthi siyacela nyeke ukutshontsha sizokwazi ukusizakala because siyazi ukuthi sidinga i-36 billion ukudila ne-gender-based violence kule country. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi. So there's a couple of issues here. The first is that when we marched on the 13th of September 2019 to Sandton to request a 2% levy be imposed on JSE-listed entities to contribute towards the GBVF fund, it was to talk about the fund that is going to be run by the GBVF Council. The current interim fund that is a private sector-led fund is an initiative to basically kind of shut us up so that there can be a stopgap measure in between. Right? And so for Mrs. de Villiers to say that she doesn't have confidence to invest money in a structure that is actually private sector led is very, very dodgy for me. The second thing, how does the DG of Treasury come to an accountability panel without the figures of how much money has been returned? We are here to account, and we need to know how much departments are returning to you so that we can hold them to account for that. So coming here ill-prepared is disrespecting the summit. The third thing is that, Minister Zulu, the shelters are funded almost operationally only about 39%. So they have to go outside and fundraise. So if you actually did put the resources and made them available, the shelters would be able to be sustained with the grants that they get from social development, which they are not at the moment. I think it's really important that we talk about the issue of social workers and making sure that there's enough money to invest in social workers in this country. Social development is really letting us down in this one. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for that.
Thank you very much. My name is Lydia Mweng. Colleagues, I really understand where Ms. de Villiers comes from when she says there's an issue of trust to a point that business is failing to invest. When you look at the situation of COVID PPE, where there was a lot of money pumped into a coffers, and when people were requested to give quotations for whatever service they could provide, there were names of government, big government officials that were mentioned in the pipeline, which means if business is to pump in money for GBV, there must be a system that will monitor the use of that money by the NPOs, not by the hands of the people who will come in and look for a share. They are always looking for a share in the money that is meant to assist the people that are assisting other people. And another thing is that, you know, when people register NPOs, they do that because they've got passion in a particular field. And some of the things that they register for are national, but you find yourself registering in the Northwest because you are in the Northwest at that time, but your programs grow to the national level. And you find that when you want to be operating with the same name in another province, you find issues with regard to that. You are told your address is in the Northwest, you cannot do your work in Limpopo and things like that. So,
All right.
Minister of Social Development, please guide there and assist us there. So my emphasis is let there be accountability on the resources that are disbursed to the NPOs. Thank you.
All right, we're going to pause it there, give them a chance to respond to some of those questions. A lot of them were mostly comments, but I want to hear if, yes, Minister Chana, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Kathy. I want to just begin by acknowledging the role that has actually been played by the gentleman that you spoke now, Matlumolatau, and the retired social workers in terms of providing free counseling voluntarily across the country. It's something commendable if we can have more and more South Africans really giving whatever skills they have to actually assist in areas of concern. There was a question or a comment about corruption in South Africa and probably what we're doing about it in government. I must actually say that we are a government that's viciously fighting corruption. And how you'd actually see this, you see it in the type of measures that we've actually put in place to really ensure that the government resources, which is part of the mandate of the Department of Public Service and Administration, government resources will be utilized for the purpose they are meant for. And lately, you would realize that there has been policies that have been developed, including what we call lifestyle audit policies that will actually go and investigate people who live a lifestyle that is beyond what is their salaries. And we also have the Fusion Center that government has actually put into place that has got all the state security apparatus coming together to actually help each other to work on corruption. What it means is that even money that is meant for gender-based violence is going to actually have to be taken care of by the same structures. We have the national hotline on abuse of state funds, or if you need to report anything as a whistleblower, we have that hotline. We have also the protected disclosures amendment bill that is also currently being improved to protect the whistleblowers. So South Africa is serious about corruption. We are aware of the corruption that have taken place in the past, and we're saying we're not looking back. We're going to continue to fight viciously in order for us to be in a position to take care of the state funds to ensure that there is that proper development across the board in South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you. Minister Zulu, do you want to respond to the comments briefly, please?
Yes, very briefly. The first speaker who spoke about stopping the stealing of the money, yes, you also have to help us in making sure that those that you know are stealing the money, you go and report them to the police so that we don't generalize. Yes, that's a fact. We must not generalize. We must not generalize, because I agree with her when she says we must stop those that are stealing the money. One of the good things that is happening in South Africa, which I think sometimes maybe we underestimate the fact that we've just come out of a Zondo commission, which was enabled, which was funded, which was able to go out and dig out the problems where they are. We now have a report that we must make sure that is implemented. And the implementation of that report is part of assisting us to stop those who are stealing. And I still insist, don't generalize about stealing, because it's not all of us sitting here who are stealing money from government. Both as ministers, as deputy ministers, and officials. Don't generalize, because I would not want to generalize about people who are not accountable about the money that government gives to them. Let us not generalize. With regard to the issue of the shelters, I fully agree. The money that is given to the shelters is not adequate. That is the reason why we go also to the private sector, we go to the churches, we go to the people on the ground. And by the way, sometimes we can just be talking about money when it comes to shelters. I have crisscrossed this country. I have found ordinary people who have got absolutely nothing, who go to the shelters to assist in the shelters. So the money that we have in government, it's not adequate. Even with the money that we give into shelters, in my view, it is not adequate.
All right.
We need to increase it where we can. But we must also not forget about the fact that Treasury sits with a bigger issue of covering the entire country and all the issues that are related. When we ask the Treasury about money that goes back to them from the Department of Social Development, the money that is given to us that has to go to the provinces, we don't have that money that says we did not spend this one that needed to go, because immediately when it comes to us, it doesn't sit with us, it goes directly. Whether it goes to SASSA, and by the way, it is this department that is paying almost 30 million people today, whether it's social grants or all aspects of social grants, including the 350, all that money goes directly to SASSA, and SASSA does the payment. The money goes to the National Development Agency, and the National Development Agency disperses the money to NPOs and NGOs. Lastly, I need to make this statement. We spend partly per year, money that goes to NPOs is 80.2 billion rands. That money doesn't sit with us. That money goes to the NPOs and the NGOs. And if we need to put record on the table, where does that money go to? We have the records which NPOs have been given that money.
All right, let's pause it there. DG, I see you want to respond briefly as well?
Yes, no, thank you. No, I think the Minister has covered, I think, just how the system works with funding and so on. I think just the additional questions that were asked, I think what I was trying to say is that the amounts that I've given are an estimate based on specific programs. Certainly as Treasury, we're happy to talk to any representatives here to see how we can improve the reporting on specific types of programs, including what is returned. What I was trying to say is that the amounts that might get returned are the entire department's amounts. It's only now that you might get, as annual reports come out, per program to see what's funded. But even that might be at too high a level. It might not give the information that many here are looking for.
All right.
And I'm saying we're prepared to engage and see how we can report better, because the basic breakdowns might be there, but one needs to do some work to pull them together depending on the question asked.
I'm going to ask that our panelists please stay in your seats, because we are going to continue with this question and answer session, especially for the people who are still on their feet and want to answer questions. You can see that there's quite a number of questions that remain, and we want to give an opportunity for all of you to have your say. What will also need to happen in the meantime, looking at where we are in terms of the time and the program, is to allow for those that are supposed to be part of the commissions to actually go to the commissions. I'm going to call Sbongile up to come and tell us exactly how they foresee this part of the program running. But we will continue with the question and answer session. The panelists are not going anywhere, and I think there's specific people, as Bongile will explain better exactly how they envision this part of the program taking place, while the main plenary hall continues with the question and answers. Bongile?